In Spanish, using these indirect object pronouns that we're going to talk about today is an essential part of the language. As an intermediate student, you probably know how important it is because you've had opportunities to practice your Spanish and you've noticed that these things are being used, and this is why I've developed this video to help you master using these indirect object pronouns. Now, if you haven't seen the first video I did on direct objects, then make sure you go back and watch that one first, because it makes it easier to grasp that, and then come back here. You'll be ready to tackle the indirect object and their pronouns. Now, one thing I'm going to say here is don't worry too much about the terminology. Direct, indirect, object, whatever. If it helps you, if you're a grammar nerd, then by all means go ahead and learn it. Otherwise, focus instead not on the terminology, but on what's going on with the Spanish. What's going on with the words we look at, because the sooner you can internalize this, the sooner you can just dispense with all this jargon. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to be notified about more videos. We put videos out twice every week, and you'll get them in your feed if you subscribe to the channel. So let's start by looking at this example. ¿Te diste cuenta del chisme sobre Raúl? Did you hear the gossip about Raúl? Now, two possible answers. First, no han dicho nada a mí. Or should I say, no me han dicho nada. So, which is correct? Well, at the end of this video, we'll come back to this example and see which one is correct and why. So anyway, what are indirect object pronouns? Well, over here on the right, we have our indirect object pronouns and their translations into English. We have me, te, le, os, nos, and finally we have les. Pause the video if you'd like to just look over these and the definitions in English. So just like in English, pronouns are used to make language more concise, to avoid having to repeat ourselves. And the biggest difference to English is just the placement of this word, of this pronoun. For example, ¿enviaste la invitación a Susana? Did you send the invitation to Susana? Sí. Ya le envié la invitación. Yes, I sent the invitation to her already. Now notice here how this pronoun, the indirect pronoun, the le, which means to her in English, comes before the verb. Do you see that? Sí. Ya le envié la invitación. Now that's simple enough, but how exactly do you use these indirect object pronouns? Well, getting a bit technical here, the indirect object of the sentence is the person who receives the direct object. Let me repeat that. The indirect object of the sentence is the person who receives the direct object. Now, don't worry if that's confusing. It'll make sense as we go through the rest of the examples. So to use indirect object pronouns, all you want to do is to replace this indirect object with the appropriate pronoun. So let's have a look here so you can see this visually. ¿Has escrito la carta al profesor? Have you written the letter to the teacher? No le he escrito la carta aún. No, I haven't written the letter to him yet. So let's analyze this now. What's our indirect object? Well, it's the teacher. The direct object, the thing that we are sending, is la carta, it's the letter. The teacher is not the direct object, he's just the one that's receiving it, so he's called the indirect object. So our indirect object, it's the teacher. Al profesor. This corresponds to the third person pronoun, le, to him or to her. By using this pronoun, by using the le, what that means is, what that enables us to do is to not to have to repeat al profesor. But as we'll see in just a few minutes, it's actually possible to use the indirect object pronoun and repeat al profesor. Okay? Spanish is a bit funny that way. Now, the biggest difficulty that intermediate students face is being able to recognize the indirect object of the sentence. In fact, when I was explaining it to you earlier, you might have thought, huh? It might not have been completely clear. Identifying indirect objects is easier than direct objects because they're generally people or living things. We do things to somebody, to something. Okay, for example, llevé la comida a mi tía. I took the food to my aunt. Or the same thing said a different way using the indirect pronoun le llevé la comida. It's the same thing, but in the second sentence we don't repeat mi tía or a mi tía. That's very efficient. It helps us say more in a more elegant way because we don't have to repeat things like a robot. So here the food is the direct object of the sentence, right? La comida, that's the thing that we are doing, that's what we're doing. That's the main thing that we're talking about here. The action is being done to the food. So it's the thing that we're bringing to our aunt. Le llevé la comida. La comida is the star of the show in this sentence. I took the food to her. So the indirect object is our aunt. She's not the star, she's like the sidekick or the supporting role. So she's the indirect object, mi tía. We bring the direct object to the indirect object. We bring la comida to mi tía, a mi tía. Here's another interesting example. Serví el café a ti. Te serví el café. This means I served you the coffee. Now, this is why indirect object pronouns are so important in Spanish. You'd probably never hear anybody say, serví el café a ti. That's why we have it in brackets here. A native Spanish speaker would automatically use the indirect object. They would say, the second version, te serví el café. Why? Well, because it's just more economical. You can get the same thing across with fewer words. So a really easy way to remember how to identify direct and indirect objects in the same sentence is to say to yourself, something to someone. Something to someone. Algo a alguien. The algo is the direct object. It's the thing that's being directed at the indirect object. I know it's a bit kind of confusing, but it does make sense, right? In this weird kind of way. A alguien is the indirect object. It's the person who receives it. It's a very foreign concept at first for native English speakers, but once you get used to it, it becomes second nature. So the real trick to mastering this stuff is not to learn all these explanations I'm giving you here, but just to notice how the different kinds of pronouns are being used, and then when you're reading and listening to Spanish, which you should be doing every day, you stop and you say, okay, there he's saying te rather than a ti, and here he's changing the pronoun. You just observe and you notice what's being used, what's being done with the Spanish. Now, this is all especially helpful to think about when we use the verb decir, because it's a very common instance that we use the indirect object pronouns. So, dije la verdad a mi hermano ayer. I told my brother the truth yesterday. La verdad is the algo, is the something. Mi hermano is the alguien, is the someone. Okay? We're doing something to somebody. Dije la verdad, the something, a mi hermano, to someone. Now, if we want to make this a little bit more efficient, instead of saying to my brother, a mi hermano, we'll just say le, because it means the same thing. So we'll say, le dije la verdad ayer. Isn't that much more concise and clear? I told him the truth yesterday. Le dije la verdad ayer. With the verb decir, you'll practically never hear a Spanish speaker say it without using that direct object pronoun. Dije la verdad a mi hermano ayer. This is because whenever you're saying anything, you're always saying algo or something to somebody, a alguien. So you'll hear people say things like le dije, te dije, me dijo quite often. It's always implied that there's a direct object. There is a something that you're saying, even if it's not clearly stated. We'd simply say le dije ayer. Now, one final piece of very important information on using indirect objects correctly is how to use them sometimes for emphasis. Okay, and in this sense, the indirect object is not replaced by a pronoun, but rather the pronoun is just added instead. So you're using both at the same time. The indirect object is repeated twice in a sentence, like we have here in this example. Los turistas pagaron a ellos. The tourists paid them. You can also say, los turistas les pagaron a ellos. Les, in the second example, refers to a ellos. So if I were to translate this directly to English, I'd say, the tourists paid them to them. It doesn't make any sense at all, does it? It's completely redundant. But in Spanish, redundancy is cool. It's okay. It helps us with emphasis. We can repeat that indirect object when we want to put an emphasis on what's going on who's receiving the action. So back to our original example from the top of the video. ¿Te diste cuenta del chisme sobre Raúl? No, no me han dicho nada. No, they haven't told me anything. In this case, it would sound really funny to say, no han dicho nada a mí. It's too obvious. It's too explicit. We need to replace a mí with a simple pronoun, me. You see how you don't really need to know the terminology here, you just see the examples and you start to figure out instinctively how it works. So I hope this video has helped clarify a little bit about what you probably heard of and known as the indirect objects, and has shown you why this happens, why they behave the way they do. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and look out for the beautifully named Indirect Objects quiz coming very soon. I hope you enjoyed this grammar lesson. Now, to download the full notes for this lesson, please click the link in the video description below, and that will take you to a page where you can sign up for our Spanish Vault and get free access to that and lots of other stuff. Now, if you'd like to test yourself on this grammar point, then check out the next video where we have a little quiz prepared for you. Otherwise, please subscribe to the channel y nos vemos en el próximo.